Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. We'll see. Um, hello.
Hello, hello.
I'm gonna come on camera in a second, but hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Okay. I'm sorry I don't have music for everyone today. It's been a running kind of a day. So I did not have a chance to even cue up some music today. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Hmm. None of you had an issue registering, did you? I got a couple people who saying they had an issue. Did any of you?
No,
No.
think Google's being weird about like the calendar things. Like when I went to my calendar, it didn't have the link in the calendar. It said go to the email. And so I went to the email. But I think that was like I just clicked the wrong button. I didn't click the one from Zoom. I clicked the one from Google. I don't know. I was just like extra steps.
I can tell you this. It seems like they've improved many things about Zoom, and some things they've made a little bit more difficult. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Some people saying, well, one person in particular saying they're having an issue. Yep, I'm gonna try and do that. So we're gonna get started in a second, in a second. Come back to that in 1 second. Get started. I'm really sad I don't have music. We need joy in this moment of pain. So I apologize for not having something to lift your spirits. But anyway, we're gonna wait a couple more minutes and get going. Okay, let me just check one more thing. Okay, welcome, 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 everyone. We're going to get started. I want to remind everyone that all our meetings are recorded and therefore uploaded to our YouTube channel. And then we also send them out completely to our email list, which is quite large, so that people can view it from the newsletter. So, with that being said, we're going to get started. Really excited about the conversation tonight and what we're going to be talking about and hearing from, because our guest tonight has spent many moons in Ward 7 educating our children, and really want to hear her views on what are the most pressing issues in education at this time, specifically in DC, but writ large, and also what's on the agenda for the Washington Teachers Union. So we'll get started with saying it is National Hispanic Heritage Month. So please recognize that this is a community that is under heightened surveillance and attack. So we want to make sure that we're lending support to our brown brothers and sisters, as we also recognize that our community, meaning the Black community, is under crazy attack too. So let's have solidarity in all matters. And with that, our agenda tonight is to welcome from me, then to hear from Laura Fuchs, and she is the newly elected president of Washington Teachers Union. We'll hear updates from our state board rep, and then we will have some announcements and adjourn. Um, Hold on. People are texting me. So, and we're going to get going. So the official welcome. Thank you. I am Marla Dean, and I am the chair of the Ward 7 Ed Council. I wanted to always remind you of the mission of the Ward 7 Ed Council, which is to organize, collaborate, advocate, to ensure access to high quality community-based public education as a matter of right for Ward 7 early childhood, pre-K to 12th grade, and students and adult learners. And our core values are of equity, access, health and safety, joy, and responsiveness. And our goals is to really work to make sure that all our Ward 7 learners deserve a high quality education, that they are entitled to attend as a resident of the District of Columbia, and also that Ward 7 schools become the preferred educational destination for Ward 7 families, and to establish when needed and protect where available a strong pre-K 12 feeder pattern in Ward 7 schools. So those are our goals. And with no further ado, I am going to spotlight you, Laura, and take down the share. So give me one moment. And I want to start the conversation by you just telling us a little bit about how you became an educator, what drew you in, the time you spent with us in Ward 7 and what you did there, And just let us get to know you a little bit before we get into the deeper discussion.
Sure. So yep, thank you for having me. Obviously, I'm a long time educator in Ward 7, so I spent the last 18 years of my career teaching social studies at HD Woodson. So I was there the very last year of the tower, the 3 years at Fletcher Johnson, and then the return to the new building. And the Ward 7 Education Council is honestly one of the first places where I really started to learn what was going on. I came to education not the greatest way, arguably. I would not stand by what I did. And even when I was doing it, I knew it was questionable, which was that I came to the DC Teaching Fellows, which means that as a college student, I came right into the classroom. Which was my first job, first school. Um, and I'd only really had not even proper training for a summer, and then I was earning my master's at night. Um, at the time, as a young 22-year-old, I just couldn't fathom doing more school before getting to be in a classroom. I wanted to be in a classroom very badly, but my college did not offer teaching. And I guess at the time, I probably wouldn't have done teaching as a degree anyways. I don't, for whatever reason, I just was very kind of a certain mindset. But within months, I kind of do know teaching is it. Teaching at Woodson is it. And I just really didn't see any other way. Um, and very quickly, because I came in Michelle Rhee years, um, and I certainly wasn't a fan even in the beginning, even though she is a DC Teaching Fellows kind of not the founder, but she founded the program the DC Teaching Fellows was founded off of. Um, I didn't know enough to kind of know what was going on. And of course, I was just trying to survive my first year in the classroom. I was not a properly trained teacher. So like I was, scrambling quite a bit. I also had three preps. Like it was a workload. Um, but the kids are so amazing. They're just kind of like, all right, you get through it. And the tower in its very last year was not being maintained. So it was also a little chaotic. Just in terms of the district was not supporting the school anymore because in their heads are like, why would we? It's about to be torn down. Um, and so it was trial by fire in many ways, but we had a very supportive staff. The students were amazing. And so, it was then jarring to see kind of this big disconnect between the media and what was being reported on the schools and the mayor, Fenty, talking about these historic investments and all these things. And Woodson's budgets were getting hammered. I mean, just clobbered year over year. And it was a new teacher. I couldn't understand like what is going on. Like to me, it was just so obvious. Like this is a school with so many people who love it so deeply, and it needs investment. Like that was just clear as day. Like there's more that needs to be done. Um, so how is it that I'm hearing these reports about all this money going into schools, and this school is just hemorrhaging funds, hemorrhaging staff? Like it's already going through the challenging transition of, new buildings, which were needed at that point because they'd stopped maintaining the tower. Um, but yeah, so it was just that was then when I kind of turned to the Ward 7 Education Council. Like I was just trying to figure out like where can I go to find out what's going on. I would attend council hearings. I didn't even know how to sign up. So I just show up and it wasn't to speak. I was just like, something's happening. Like, and there'd be all these really powerful testimonies. I'm like, okay, this is big. Like, this is not just Woodson. Like, there is a real disconnect between what is being said at the top and what is happening. And it's not just here. There were only a few like bloggers, social media it was a thing, but it hadn't really spread beyond like kind of the young subset too much. So just being able to get alternative perspectives was very difficult. You're just reading all these news stories lauding Michelle Rhee. You're just like, what? Like, what is going on? And so Ward 7 Education Council, it wasn't, I think it took me maybe 2 years. Like, so it was probably like 2009, 2010 is when I started finding those meetings. I don't even remember how I heard about them, but I heard about them. I was like, okay, this is good. And I just, was there. My goal is like to listen, anyone who's met me knows it's hard for me not to say something at some point, but like I tried to really just limit it to my own experiences in the classroom, because I knew like I had so much to learn about what was going on because I just could tell something was bad, but didn't really know much beyond that. And like that's where I learned about, the history. Mary Levy came and presented, and I learned about budgets and like how to sign up and testify. So I just know like a lot, like I get know a lot of my advocacy career, um, to kind of just what I learned in this community and eventually became the secretary because I was just always there taking notes because that's how I've tried to process and remember things. And it was like, may as well take official notes that I know were too detailed because that's just how I am. But yeah, so I just love Ward 7. I love HD Woodson. This is my first year out of the classroom in 18 years, and I do miss it. There's a lot going on, so it keeps you busy. But the students are always very grounding, and so I do have to figure out how to maybe stay grounded and not start getting caught up in the minutia of like just union business. And always just be brought back to like this is why, because these students are amazing. They deserve our best. Our educators are amazing. They deserve our best. And public schools are important, and they always have been, and they always will be. And we can't allow privatization to take them away from us.
Yeah, thank you for giving us that kind of look back at what activated you. I could spend a long time with you around that conversation because so many people who come through alternative education programs or certification programs don't stick in.
No, they don't.
So you are an anomaly. I just wonder briefly what made you stick and stay longer in the classroom than most people do today, which is
Mm.
now 18 years.
Yeah. I think part of it was I wouldn't admit it to myself. I was unfortunately raised, not, I would not blame my parents, but like a lot of the schooling that I went to was very elitist. It
Okay.
was public, but it was kind of like, I guess, the Deals and Jackson Reeds, right? It was on a certain side of town from where I grew up, which is Portland, Oregon. Um, and just kind of the attitude was not very high up on like becoming a teacher. And yet every volunteer experience, everything I did was in a classroom, literally everything. But the idea of conceptualizing myself as a teacher just, it wasn't instilled in me. And I don't believe, I don't think my parents have ever had a problem with me being a teacher and wouldn't have. But it also didn't occur to them that that was something to like tell your kid, oh, you might want to be a teacher. They were
Mhm.
scientists. So to them, it's like, yeah, don't you want to do science? Isn't science great? And at the time, I was like, yes, I want to be a scientist. Um, and then my college was unfortunately more of the same. So I think that was part of, but I was still always volunteering in classrooms. Everything I did was in a classroom, just constantly. So I do think I had some conception of what it should be and how to work with teenagers. I went to school in Chicago, so I did, work in districts that more resemble DC than where I grew up.
Mhm.
Um, and so then coming in to the teaching fellows, unfortunately, the summer training was really through the teaching fellows. It was not, there were a couple classes you did through American, and American University classes were great, but we were also getting training from the teaching fellows program, and that was not great. And I think I just instinctively knew like a lot of the command and punish things that I'm like, you cannot talk to a teenager that way. I would hope most people just know that, but I do get, not everyone remembers what it's like to be a teenager. Um,
Mhm.
and that like just some of the teach, what is it? Teach like a champion stuff, like it's just not good. And so I could just instinctively feel like when I'm being told to do, like, there's just no way I'm not doing that. Not if I want to survive, not get like a piece of chalk thrown at my head, which I would deserve for what I just done, kind of thing. Um, I just think, a lot of because they do, it wasn't exclusively young people, and it was mainly the career changers are the ones that typically stayed. I was one of the, I think, only college people that stayed. Um, but it's just like it is heavily sold. And so like if you believe it and you're like, oh, I just have to do these things, and you're not maybe thinking a little critically about what you're being told to do, and you're like, well, this is a successful program. They're saying this works. Look at this young teacher. It's usually someone who also went through the program, not, someone actually certified, telling you these things work. Like it just if you can see why it feels like, okay, I'll just do this. That's what they say.
Mhm.
And then you burn out because it does not work. Then you might. And I think also that they tend to recruit a lot of people. And I myself had a lot of unpacking to do
Mhm.
that kind of feel like I'm clever, I'm successful, I'm this, I'm that. And here I am in a setting, and maybe it's not going well, but I'm still going to conceptualize myself as clever and powerful and successful. And so I'm not maybe going to fully reflect on what's going on and the work that maybe we have to do to, one, humble ourselves, and then like actually learn, okay, I got a lot to learn here to be the best teacher I can be. And I don't think I was terrible my first year, but I certainly was nowhere near where, I was when I exited, which would be for anyone, even a traditional, program. But yeah, so I think that helped. And then just that I was always interested in like union work and politics and budgets and like these kinds of things. Like I think it helped me in a district that really tries to disempower you at every turn. I know, parents, it does the same thing. It does it to all of us, like beyond the mayor. They're just trying to really say, you have no power here. Maybe come to this little check-off meeting and we'll nod very nicely and then we will completely ignore you. Um, that helped me just like feel like there is a way through. Like I can be with the union, I can be with these other educators, be with this community that is fighting back, that is telling the truth, is relentless and trying to continue even though there's a million roadblocks. We're not going to win every time by any means. Um, I think so many like just kind of felt like this is hopeless. Like I got to go somewhere that's nicer because a lot of people I know who did teaching fellows are still teachers,
Mhm.
but not in DC. And I understand it's hard. Not because of the kids or community, but because of this district and what it does. But yeah, so I think that's kind of a part of it. It's just having that community power then made me feel like, okay, I can invest in this and stay, and I'm gonna, fight alongside all these other people who I know are fighting. And that gives me like then I can put all the other BS to the side. It's like, I know this is BS and I don't like it, and I'm trying to make a difference.
Okay, and so take us from there to how you got involved in the union and ultimately your decision to run and win the president of WTU.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's still an extension of a lot of the community work. President Elizabeth Davis is also, a community activist, someone who ran many times to be the president of the WTU. And when she ran and finally won, she'd seen me around, just testifying at hearings, being at the same community meetings she was going to. Um, and my big thing is that I cannot stand incumbents who don't stand by our schools, and our students. I can't do it. I don't like it when they're not, in my opinion, telling the truth about what they've done for the district and they're just allowing bad things to continue, even if they're not the provenance of those bad things. Um, and so I usually didn't mince my words when I was talking to them.
Usually,
And Elizabeth
okay,
Davis
Laura,
was similar.
that's an understatement, but go ahead.
I don't think I was ever rude. People might disagree. But I think so. She tapped me to be the chair of the Committee on Political Education for the union. I think in large part our politics aligned, hers and mine, in terms of which politicians we believed in and which ones we didn't, and kind of how we were navigating DC, local government. But also, like, as president, she knew she wouldn't be able to say everything that she wanted to say, but I could be a little bulldog and run around and say everything that was on her mind, because we did think, I think, so similarly on so much, politically. Not everything, but a lot.
Mhm.
Um, and she also kind of showed me a different path to unionism. I was always proud to be in the union. I was very involved at Woodson, but I had not really attempted or even thought about getting involved at the district level because there was just so much going on for Woodson. I was like, let's just, fight for Woodson and be in Ward 7 and do what we can there. And so she really kind of keyed me into like different groups that were fighting to make unions more democratic spaces, spaces where we were really trying to get more organized, build for member and rank and file power in conjunction with the community, to make real change, and that teachers' unions in particular could be the center of that for a lot of communities because we're so tied to the community and we serve in the public sector. Like we're kind of in this interesting position that really can be used to build power for public schools. And there's a group called Labor Notes that President Davis introduced me to that really are involved like with the Chicago Teachers Union, who's done a lot there, and other union movements of rank and file members who've really been trying to reform their unions into being kind of these more social justice, progressively minded organizations. No union's perfect, including that one, but that was like the vision. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I'm still a huge believer, and just over the years, I got a little frustrated internally with the WTU. I'd been elected on the board for a decade at this point, and it just felt like it wasn't that anything was bad, but we were not truly progressing on some of the goals that I'd hoped that we could. And I was in my ideal role, which was also secretary. So again, Ward 7 training me up. I'm taking on the secretary somewhere else. Um, Because I could stay in the classroom, I could be a high-ranked union official, help direct the union, but I was still teaching full time. And to me, this was really, and I love taking notes. So like it was all just great. But just a lot of the things I believed in that I believed the union had to do, they just were not moving at all. And in my opinion, the Washington Teachers Union has been a very top-down organization, one where the president has maintained a lot of power. And I just personally don't agree that that's a good model for a union to be successful. And so I mean, I ran on a platform alongside with 20 other members of our board and 3 board of trustees on a platform saying, I'm going to dismantle this. Like, I'm going to spread this power out. The president should not be so unchecked. It's not, again, it's like not to impinge on anyone who served in it. I don't think anyone was corrupt or bad. But I do think that when you concentrate a lot of decision-making power into one person, like it just doesn't lead to the best decisions. Even if they're all super well-intentioned, which I would agree that they were. Um, yeah, I think it's been holding our union back a bit. So that's kind of what our big reform angle was. And now we're trying to implement it.
So let's talk a little bit more. Let's drill down a little bit on that. So, what do you think are the biggest, most pressing issues facing us in DC when it comes to education today? One question. Second question, nationally. And third question, within unionism and within the movement of unions.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's always kind of come down to privatization, both probably locally and nationally, because DC, unfortunately, is a little petri dish for a lot of national, at least attempted projects. Um, and I think that, like, I mean, privatization can encompass so many different elements that, like, it's maybe a little cheap answer. It's like, it's huge. Um, but I do think, unfortunately, it's still the big driving force in DC. Local government, it's lessening its rhetoric at least a little bit. I think that happened last time we had Trump as our president as well. But unfortunately, I think even when we have a Democrat in the national seat, it continues and usually even ramps up a little bit in DC, because they feel emboldened. Um, so to me, privatization encompasses several things. I mean, one, it is about our school budgets, and just that, especially now that we know we may, this time for real, actually be facing a downturn. Um, in the face that we have spread, and I mean, I know you speak so eloquently on this all the time, but we have spread our money too thin. And the DCPS, often seems to be paying the price for that.
Mhm.
Though, I also 100% disagree for when charters just close right and left as well. Like I don't like school closures. I do believe in investing, but I also think unfortunately we do have too many schools. And that's, leading to a lot of challenges. Now, DC has money. And has put money towards our public schools, but I don't think they're really tracking it. And so it's hard sometimes to understand exactly where the money's going. And I think unfortunately that's still on purpose. And I do kind of view that as part of the privatization thing. It's like we want to contract all these things out. We want to bring in all these outside partners. Again, many of whom are very well-meaning, great people. But are we like actually working together to fully understand like how are these partners coming together to serve the school? How are we making sure it's all working? Like I think a lot of things are very good on paper, but not necessarily fully implemented. And because there's just so little accountability in this district. Because again, when you have one person in control, like a mayor, they're not going to be paying a whole lot of attention. And they might not have a reason to because they'd rather have a press conference and talk about the shiny new thing than deal with the reality of this stuff is hard. Like, I don't, I won't claim anyone's not well-meaning. It's just it's not moving in the direction we need it to. And like instead of just coming up with a new plan, which frankly is the same as the old plan, is the same as the old plan, is the same as the old plan, like why don't we actually sit down and come together and work in partnership with the community, with our students and families, with our educators for real, not just kind of this often feels like token, like here, we have this little board. We're gonna tell you the things we're already doing, and then you're just supposed to tell us how much you like it. Um, Kind of attitude. So there's that. And then things like over testing. Our educators are bringing that up a lot. They brought it up a lot during my campaign, and it's not going anywhere. Um, there's just too many tests, and there's too much time dedicated to testing, and it robs the joy of our classrooms. It's often redundant. I think, I'm probably the most extreme version of a lot of my members because I'm just like, throw it all out. Who cares? Like, I can't deal with any of it. I don't like any standardized tests really that I've ever experienced. But most of our educators are not there. They just don't want like three tests that all test the same thing and tell us the same data. And like this idea that like you take a test to prepare for the test, no, that's not how like it works. Like, yeah, you need a little bit of prep. But you don't need to be just constantly taking this kind of diagnostic and this kind of diagnostic and this kind of diagnostic. And then you get on a computer program and basically it's more testing in the guise of like formative assessments. Like it's too much. It robs the joy of learning. It's not interesting. It's not delving into the big questions. It's not giving kids a chance to really flex their muscles that they have. Like they're excellent critical thinkers. They're constantly thinking critically. Give them a chance to just like do that every day. Like it's not, but and I get we need to focus on skills too and build up their skills, but like just the way it's being done, I think most teachers do not agree with it. And it's just not, it's not a good use of anyone's time. And that of course ties into privatization because that's how we're then labeling and punishing our schools, even though it's supposed to say, oh, if you're not doing well, we'll give you more. But that's just never how it plays out. Not really. It's nominal at best. So, it's just kind of all that. And, with the union, I think like our big challenge is like that we're kind of, and that, unions are reckoning with is that if we kind of treat a union as like this little vending machine where, okay, I pay in my money every paycheck to be a member, and then I'm just going to click it. I'm going to tell you my problem and you're going to fix it for me. Um, that, well, our union's not going to get anywhere. And again, I think it's well-meaning, right? Like the union wants to provide a service and it's hard. You hear these really emotional problems. You're like, oh my God, like, yeah, of course we want to help. Um, but if we just run around and keep helping each individual problem that's at its most extreme, because that's usually by the time it gets to us as a union, then We're not advancing to actually trying to solve the problems. And it is a balance. We can't just drop helping
Mhm.
members and be like, nope, sorry, we got big picture things to do. So your issue is just going to have to sit there and not be dealt with. But it is like it's this struggle. But we also know like if we don't do it, then we're never going to ever truly be able to address people's longstanding challenges. So it's and then helping members see like you're a part of this. Like you can't just hope that like this new president's going to come in and be able to save everything just by yelling at the chancellor. It's not this like he's gonna be like, that's nice, don't care.
Mhm.
She's yelling again or something, but and I don't yell at the chancellor, but I kind of get this reputation. I yell on Twitter, I guess. So, I think it's just
In
helping see
between the
that.
structural issues that you're trying to address and the individual needs of your members, right? And how the union can play a role in improving education and the experience of it for both student and teacher, but teachers in particular, and then also the individual needs of them. And so that's what you're
Yeah.
trying to weigh. Okay. Now, my question, because some people will push back, Laura, on some of the stuff you're saying, and they would say that the system is not broken, that in fact we are in DC the fastest improving district in the nation. And it's a demonstration that choice actually does work. You
Mhm.
create competition. And so how would you answer this pushback that we are the fastest improving district in the nation. And so that's emblematic, or that's proof that what DC is doing is working.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I started laughing because, like, that fastest improving line came from Arnie Duncan, said about DC back in like 2012. And we have been saying it every year since. And I mean, every year since he said that. And when he said it, it wasn't true. And it's still not true. I think, like, it's like based on what? How can you be the fastest growing anything for 13 years straight? Like, you can't. It's not real fastest growing what. And even if it were true, even if we said, okay, the test scores, they're going up, that's what they're talking about. And so then is that like speaking to our real lives? Is that speaking to our students feeling empowered to go out and get the career job that they want? Is it speaking to college success rates if that's what the student wanted to accomplish? And I get it's more than just the school, right? Like there's finances and there's the economic realities and the social realities that our students face that throw up lots of challenges as well, that are unfair, that they shouldn't have to deal with as young people. And of course, you can't extract race and racism from this entire equation that our young people are facing, um, even in years that are not as maybe chaotic as this one. Um, but I think, to me, it's just like there's so many indicators that we have a problem. Students are hopping from school to school.
Mm,
They
mm.
feel the need to drive across the district to get to a school that they deem as, the right fit for them. And that I think, as you and so many of others have argued, like, and it's always in one direction, right? It is from east to west. We're not asking when there's overcrowding at Jackson Reed, we're not talking about let's build up Anacostia and y'all can get on the metro just like kids get on the metro and you can travel. If you want smaller class sizes, head over there, right? If that's important to you, go
Well,
to
they said flat
private.
cookies taste good. I gave him some
Wait a minute. I'm
last
gonna mute
year.
that.
That's probably accidental.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna
Yeah.
mute. Okay, keep going.
So and on top of that, we're hemorrhaging educators. We start
Mhm.
every year with vacancies. We're currently sitting in a vacancy crisis right now. I get the vacancy list now every week as the president, and it still has, like 50 plus, and it grows because people are leaving mid-year. That to me does not scream success. And even for the teachers that don't leave the district, we're watching them hop from school to school, just like our kids, trying to find a fit that they hope will be better. Um, and so like if you actually like started to, and I mean, unfortunately, our union has not done this well enough either, and we are going to start looking at how we can collect this, but like if you drill into the data, not just who didn't leave DCBS, but who stayed at their school. And I know there's some data out there, but some of it's a little, I think, questionable. Um, it's not high. Like I loved Woodson, and I get there's a lot beyond Woodson's control, but I mean, it was 20 or 30% on the regular. I was on personnel. I had to interview over and over and over again all summer long, and you know, it is a hard market anyways. Like it's not just DC, but it's not great. And it's not been great for a long time. And we're the highest paid teachers in the region, and it's still not great. Like, so clearly pay alone is not cutting it because people will come for the money and be like, oh, nope, hop back over to PG. It wasn't worth it. Try again. And then sometimes they come back being like, well, you know what? Actually, I gotta get that pay. Like, so I mean, but it's just, I guess, like, yeah, even if I accepted the test score argument, and I don't, I can't see how for 12 years running we can keep using the same exact line over and over again. Like, to me, that just screams like false. Um, that all this movement is not screaming success. If this was successful, then people would find that right fit, and maybe it is a travel, but they wouldn't be bouncing from place to place constantly. They would find it and they'd stay. And just too often, we're just seeing a lot of movement of all sorts of different people from school to school to school. And that just, to me, does not scream that this is working.
Okay, now parents would say, some of them, that um, the system of choice is very important to them, and it helps them match their child's needs with the school. So talk about, and that's what charters provide, or choice. So talk about the parent who's saying, listen, I'm worried about my child. Thank you very much about everyone else's child. But my primary responsibility is to my own. And the school in my community is not getting it done. So I'm going to enter the charter system. What's your response to that? Both on a systemic level, but on an actual human level around that.
Absolutely. I mean, I am not someone who has a child of my own. I would never seek to tell a parent what they should be doing in the best interest of their child, nor that somehow their child should be the sacrificial lamb on, the push towards greater equity. When we're in, a period where, yeah, some schools are severely underfunded and they're not, being supported in a way that's maybe working for every kid in there. Um, so I guess I've never personally begrudged people's ability to choose where they want to go. I think for me, it's less about what the parents are doing and more about how is the system making sure that we have schools worth choosing. And the neighborhood public schools are the backbone of choice because I think and I'm not the one who came up with it. I don't know if it's EBONI-ROSE or others here. I'm sure it's probably here. That it's not a choice if you feel like you have to get out. You're not choosing then. You feel like, I mean, your choice has been removed from you. You're feeling like escape is the only option. Now, I do, sometimes caution parents is like why they feel that way. Like, have they visited the school, local school? Not saying that means they have to pick it, but just have you given it a chance, or are you kind of relying solely on word of mouth and test scores? And then, I might caution that like it might be worth checking out. It might be better than you think. Um, and that doesn't mean you have to send your kid there, but like, find a way to actually learn about the school that you are judging. Because I do feel like, and I don't blame the parents for it, right? But that the system is judging all of these schools. They're sending out a certain narrative about our schools, even when they maybe say some nice things in there too. They're still kind of screaming overall. a certain narrative. So I get why parents feel that way.
Mhm.
But you would hope that at least, like, as they're doing their due diligence in the charter system, they would also do their due diligence with their neighborhood home schools to make sure that it is true, it's not a good fit. Um, but then, is the system, like, so much of it is duplicative. That's the part that kind of gets me, with like kind of the charter system in particular, which is that why are we opening up a STEM school across the street from a neighborhood STEM school? Like, I don't get it. And it happens too often. And so it's like, is that school actually different, or did it just select out its students and it's going to push out other ones as well as it's getting going, to kind of get the result that it wants? Um, I mean, as a high school teacher, it's just really hard for me to look at some of these charter schools that are rated very highly. They start out with 150 freshmen, they graduate 50 kids, and they want to tell me they have a 100% graduation rate. And like, how? Literally a third of your kids are gone. Woodson probably graduated some, Blue graduated some, Anna graduated some of your kids. So how did you graduate 100% when you start with 150 and you went with 49? So like, that part, like, I don't like a lot of that propaganda and kind of how there seems to really be, that kind of push, but I would never blame a parent for it. Like, parents are going to do what they need to do. And I think that it's more that the system, we need to be setting up parameters for like actually interrogating what we're doing with our funds. How are we making sure that everyone does have the opportunity to attend a high quality neighborhood school that is funded, has, the programming that people want? Um, and then have all the choices on top of that, but like, we should be judicious in the choices we're approving so it's actually offering something unique and different. Because why do I need Woodson down the street that's just Woodson 2.0? Like, what's different about it? It's just another high school. Again, I'm not advocating for closing the ones that exist because I don't like that kind of disruption to communities and families, but I do think, especially, because it's stuff still expands. Like, it's just, we have been saturated. And it's also not in the best interest of charter schools that exist to keep just adding more. Like, they're also in this system and like it feeds on itself. So like, someone will have to close. Like, we're not getting so many more kids every year that we could say, yeah, of course, we need
Mhm.
another building because goodness gracious, it's
Mhm.
overflowing. So yeah, I think this is, yeah, I never begrudge a parent choice, but I do think as a system, we're not having really honest conversations about what's happening. And unfortunately, like, I'm also afraid of some of those honest conversations because with the people in power who are in power, both locally and nationally, I believe it would be, unfortunately, at the expense of DCPS and not at the expense of the charters. And so, like, yeah, you're right. We got to consolidate. It's not going to be them. It's going to be us. And like, whoop, whoop, there we go. All the schools are right. Go away. Not that I think anyone's advocating for it fully, but it's also like, at some point, they have to accept that's the natural consequence of the choices they're making. And so then they got to make different choices. Yeah.
So this is I have two questions, and then we'll open it up. Um, just before I came to get my computer and get ready for this meeting, I received a text that said the U.S. Department of Education announced the release of a record 500 million for charter schools, redirecting it from HBCUs. Yeah, I don't.
It's like two pots of money. No?
Well, we know it's administration that doesn't necessarily follow the rules and those types of things. So, um, but this seems like this is pitting Black people against each other. And HBCUs and parents who feel like they need to consider choice and what do you do? I mean, it just seems like we're not having a real conversation or we're around the systems, and you have talked about the systems and the structures that consistently
Yeah.
disadvantage certain communities educationally and otherwise.
Well, I
Uh,
think like part of it is that DC and other urban districts with a lot of charters are very different from the rest of the nation's charter systems. And this was part of where I got very frustrated when interacting with Education Reform Now and Democrats for Education Reform, um, and groups like that, and like, because the people who are funding those groups, namely the Walton Family Foundation, had a very clear agenda, which was a white Christo-fascist public money going to private religious education. And that was always centered for them, for the Waltons, on white families being able to extricate themselves from public education on the public dime. And Deepers finally come mask off with that on a national level, which I understand is a big part of why the local chapter closed, because there was a difference of opinion between the DC version and the national. But they were always one organization, being bankrolled by one major organization, or maybe not 100% exclusively, but close. And so there is a very real tension that I think the charter system in DC doesn't truly deal with, which is that there's a lot of money, private money flowing through them, that this was always the end game. And they're using charters that I think all the people involved are extremely well intentioned and, in it to support Black students, Black and brown students in DC. I get that. But the money flowing in was using them as a front for what they've always wanted. And that they only kind of hit, like it wasn't that hidden, unfortunately. And I get like who's turning down the Waltons billions. I get it. And I don't think that means the schools were then compromised in what they were doing. But the mask has come off, right? They are now openly going for it. They view this as their moment, and this is what they were building for. And they used that smoke screen because they also then had all this money going into other things because they have so much that they can give to these, causes that they care deeply about. Um, that I think just hasn't been reckoned with. And now we're dealing with kind of where this has all been headed, from that side, who's unfortunately, really grabbed the reins of power and are trying to shift it in that direction. And I mean that as like, I don't think anyone's a puppet or anything like that. Like, it's just that's what's been happening. It's been heading that way, and people have been screaming into the wind, being like, we got to be careful with this, like, because they're building these narratives and they can be used for good and they can just as quickly be turned around and used for bad. And the same with the public sector. I get like all these are tools that can be used for good and used for bad. But like it is here and like right now the mask is fully off and like we have to reckon then with kind of the words of privatization now being turned into weapons and into kind of the racist weapons that at least the funders behind the scene had always intended for them to be. And that, that's a hard one.
yeah, yeah. Okay, last question. So what do you hope to accomplish this year as president of WGU?
A lot of it is internal, honestly. Like our union just maybe isn't, using the systems of organizing that we could that kind of allow us to quickly communicate with our members and make decisions quickly and democratically, and then kind of move as one unit. Like we got to build up those muscles as well as, of course, build up our relationships. And I think the union's always been, I think a good partner, but I don't know that we've always taken the lead or done as much kind of deep work in nurturing our partnerships as we can. And so we have to, also be building those muscles in terms of making sure we are there for our allies even more and just building on what I think was always there, and that our previous presidents and union members have always been doing, but just try to really systematize it. And we're one of the few organizations in DC that has money, that is fighting for public schools very directly. And it's members' money, right? These are educators pulling out
Mhm.
close to $900 a year out of their paycheck. They don't have to. By law, they can say no and give us zero, right? They are electing to do that, to have this organization to fight the good fight for themselves and for their public schools and their community. So we don't take that lightly, that like we're no large, you know, billionaire funded group. Like this is all grassroots money. We get money from nowhere else. Um, any money we get from the AFT, like that's because we have to pay quite a bit of money to be in the AFT, and we're just getting a little bit back. So like that is all our members' money, for the work that we do. But you know, it is also not nothing. And we know like we have so many grassroots counterparts that do so much, but don't have nearly the resources we do. And so it's kind of figuring out how can we marshal those resources, as best we can to like be ready to really, you know, prepare to fight for our public schools, unfortunately, from, you know, the federal attacks that we know are likely in the pipeline. It's just a matter of when. Um, and so, yeah, a lot of that just means then focusing on ourselves, making sure we're ready to marshal those resources, to use our relationships with the community, make sure we built strong relationships so that when we all have to stand together and, you know, say enough is enough, like we're here to protect our kids, all of them at our schools, and teach real history and keep our books and don't you dare touch our bathroom signs. That's not for you, right? Like that we're ready, when the culture wars, I think, truly infiltrate our schools.
Well, thank you. I want to open it up to questions now, for this conversation that I have found thoughtful and enlightening around what are the issues in education and how we need to be thinking about it at a much more structural level. Carla Reed, please, the floor is yours.
Hi, Laura. I was wondering your opinion. I've been hearing from some advocates that because of the national or federal situation and the eyes on DC, that we should not basically put out our dirty laundry. And I'm struggling with that because I'm like, well, if we don't talk about our issues, how are we going to like get funding for them or make change? I see their concern, but I'm very conflicted about, like, for example, presenting our reading scores as, you know, the best growth in the nation and not talking about the percentage of our kids that do not read proficiently. So I was just wondering about your thoughts on that sort of that dilemma.
No, that's a really good question. I think, right, like I do agree, it's like much more acute right now when thinking about like what do we say, how do we say it, like how big do you go, or at least try to go. Um, but it's always kind of been a tension, right? Because like I do love DC public schools. I've dedicated my career to it. I believe in it. Like I'm here, you know, in the union because I know that it is great in so many ways. But just that unfortunately sometimes it feels like it's great in spite of some of the things that are happening from our local government, not because of it. And that's the frustrating part. 'Cause it's like so many amazing things are happening in our schools every day. Kids are learning, like you said, like so it's not that I want to like just say, oh, it's all terrible, fix
Mhm.
it, right? Like, but at the same time, like you said, like there are very real issues that we have to try and change and we can't just look away from. Um, so I agree, it's a constant tension. I think part of our plan was always to focus internally, our first year, even without the federal government being what it is, and being such a threat. So I think like there's ways to have the conversations without drawing the national eye, right? Like I mean, if you look at my Twitter account, it's pretty quiet. It's not because I don't have issues with the chancellor. I do. But also like, I'm now representing the institution. I can't just fly off the handle because I feel like it. But so I do think, right, like it does maybe adjust our tactics and kind of saying, well, let's delay any big kind of press conferencey style, call out, though, I will just mention like our H-1B international educators, like the chancellor's not going to leave us much choice. Like we have to talk about it publicly because we can't let them essentially deport close to 300 educators just because they don't want to fill out an application for a green card. One that we believe they had heavily implied was at least a possibility. And to go from a possibility to nothing at all, like that's just to me, it's horrible. And given just then all the other announcements about H-1Bs and just all this stuff, like it's not okay. And so we're getting a little closer to where like we're gonna have to say something more forcefully than we are, um, if we can't find a way to resolve it. So I mean, I think you raised a really good point. Um, it certainly affects, I think, the tactics, but I don't think we can back away, like you said, from what needs to be said. But we might, be a little gentler in our approach for longer, as long as we can, and try to more just have internal community conversations, the kind of thing that we don't think would catch a national attention, but still talk about it, still think about what can we do about it, still try to push for what's right, but maybe not, constantly be picketing everything everywhere. I mean, if they bring us there, like we're not taking it off the table, but try to do a lot more before we get to maybe some of the more um, attention grabbing tactics that we might try.
Mhm. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Mhm. There was a question early on. I don't know if the person I think left. I don't think they're really familiar with our format. It's a good discussion first, and then we open it up. With that, um, well, Laura, thank you. There's a lot going on in education in the world in DC. There's a lot for us to be thinking about how to balance in this time. Certainly try not to do anything that's going to create additional harm, but yet not talk about some very important issues. And so
Because I
I
mean, it does harm to do nothing as
it
well.
does.
Like the status quo is unfortunately still causing harm.
Yeah,
Like, so we gotta do something.
right. I concur. Um, so I want to thank you for coming. I'm sure there's lots on your plate and many calls and things you got to produce for tomorrow.
Can I ask one more question,
Yeah,
please?
go ahead, Carla.
I just want, I want to know what it's like for you now in your new role and not being able to tell it like it as your reputation.
Yeah, I think, I was always pretty clear with my members that as we get these democratic processes up and running, that I would be coming to them and asking them to let me at them kind of attitude, right? Like, be like, oh, I could really use a resolution, like
Mhm.
doing a vote of no confidence and say our chancellor for XYZ reason. And in the past, our members have always been like, thumbs up, like, let's go. And then, kind of authorize me to be a little more direct. But I do think that truth to power is important. Um, I think like the Twitter algorithm anyways is kind of dead. So while that was really my wheelhouse and that was where I got a lot of my public advocacy going, I just don't know that it's as valuable a tool anymore, unfortunately. Um, Even if I wasn't representing the whole organization, I'd already kind of moved away from it a bit.
Mhm.
But I think, and I've had to have a lot of meetings with different central office people, and I'm still myself. Like, I can't stop it. Like, eventually they say something and I just have to call it out. And it's like, nope, 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 nope. Let's try that again. Because, like, what we're not going to do is lie about what's going on. So I think it's more like now it's kind of been more a little behind the scenes because I now have direct access. And I used to use Twitter as a way to try to get their attention, of course, right? And I mean, the attention of the community and making sure, others maybe knew different perspectives when the, kind of the machine was pushing such a strong narrative about what was happening in DC, and it just was so disjointed from reality. Um, so my hope is, to really kind of strengthen members who feel like then they can do what I used to do pretty recklessly. And I mean, look, I got real lucky with Woodson, even though I had 6 different principals, they all were very moral people. And they all, weren't willing to compromise my career just because I was noisy. Um, and I know of other schools that were not so lucky, and where, their union activists got knocked out right away, through pretty immoral tactics. So, like a lot of that's luck, a lot of that's white privilege, like, and I want to create a space where our union members feel like they don't have to go as hard as I like to go, but like that they can speak their truth and be honest with what they believe is happening, what they wish to see for their district, and not feel like that's just going to mean you're about to lose your job. Um, and we're just not there. And so, yeah, I think I'm also, because like a big part of my role is also, or my vision is to decenter the president. Like if I get too kind of loud and I'm constantly going and it becomes, just more of the Laura show, then it kind of ceases to be the function of what we're trying to do, because my goal is to try to get members out into the community, get them connected, make them feel supported in doing that, finding them the time and space to do their job, which, the union's contract is meant to protect their ability to teach kids and not be pulled into a million other different directions. Um, and so it is like it is different. It's certainly, I have to be like more thoughtful than, I mean, I think I tried to be thoughtful even when I was flying off the handle. Like I was still like I was doing it with intent. It was pretty rare. Like, I mean, sometimes these 11 o'clock at night posts, there's clearly less intent at that point. But most of the time, like, even though I sounded mad, like I knew what I was saying and I meant to say it, and it wasn't just emotion running through. Like this was a tactic, and like I was here to use it and get my message across by any means necessary. Um, so that it wouldn't be ignored, like unfortunately too often is. And so, I think I just now have maybe a few more tactics in my disposal,
Mhm.
and that my job is to help get members to see that they don't have to just be on social media flying off the handle, but like that there's ways for them to get their voice out there together collectively, and hopefully be, so you'd even see less of me eventually, right? Because there'd be other members from the union here at this meeting and they could be speaking to their experiences, and I'm just there to support and make sure they know the opportunities, have the space to do it, feel like they won't just get retaliated against because they said something in a meeting and it got back to their principal, like, hey, why are you saying this about our school? How dare you?
Mhm.
Um, so trying to create those spaces. So I still view it as an extension. I don't feel like I've had to censor myself. I'm just choosing, I think, different ways to do it. And it is a little bit more behind the scenes, kind of to your earlier question. Like, oh, I'm still calling them to the carpet for some of the things they're trying to do in these schools and or not do. Um, but it's not as public right now. But I mean, it will be if they keep ignoring us, which they like to do. Like eventually, we'll be like, well, I guess talking to you has no value. I'm gonna talk out here.
Well, thank you again. Thank you. that reminds me of when I was in the classroom and I never expressed annoyance or anger or irritation when I actually was, because that's not the time to do it, is I would actually plan it with my students so that it was effective and it wasn't from a bad place. I think they say good teaching is actually doing the opposite of your impulse and having a lot of internal control and measurement. So thank you for this conversation. I appreciate it. And we will continue to stay in dialogue. Keep us as part of the rotation so we'll know the issues and especially, but how, writ large in DC, but especially how they affect Ward 7. Okay? Thank you for your time. And now, as we continue on, I want to bring forward our State Board Rep, EBONI-ROSE Thompson. I think, yeah, she's here. I think I saw her to spotlight you, Ebony, to bring us some updates on what's going on. Okay, there you are. Okay.
Sorry, I was hungry. Um, I literally started eating right before you called me up, but I'm here.
I saw you chewing. I went, I just said.
I know it was good too.
Okay.
But
So I'm going to stop share so you can be, yeah, spotlighted. There you go.
I'm fully finished chewing now. Good evening, everyone. If we haven't met, my name is EBONI-ROSE Thompson. I do represent Ward 7 on the State Board of Education. A couple things I want to flag. So first, our next meeting will actually be September 30th. It is not on October 1st because I believe that is Yom Kippur because it's Rosh Hashanah now. And so we will be observing or allowing, members to observe Yom Kippur. So we have moved our meeting up one day. So that is a Tuesday instead of the general Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month. You can still watch online and all the things. And of course, the recordings will be up. But I just want to flag that for folks that is a change and why it's changed. At that meeting, I expect that OSI will finally present the long-awaited high school graduation requirement draft. We expected to have that some time ago. I don't really have a bunch of context as far as why it has been delayed for this long, but they are confirmed to present at our September 30 meeting. So I am very much looking forward to that. We should also be announcing the task force members, if not next week, then the week after. But we will be in contact with folks who are on the task force. I want to thank everybody who has shared interest, all the things. We also, with the task force, we will be kicking off engagement. So it's not like if you're not on the task force, you don't get to engage. But I have a whole work plan, which actually has kind of two iterations. So we will be engaging people around just the reactions to the OSI proposal. We will then actually come back and say, hey, based on what we heard from you, is this right? And then so you can give more feedback. And then we will submit our final recommendations for OSI to hopefully send back to us so we can approve them. I have two big goals for this work. One is I want us to do a better job of not just saying we want flexibility, but really to be earnest in our creation of equal pathways. And so instead of us, I know folks have had some concerns about, are we reducing credit areas in some places? I actually think we should just have different equal good pathways. And so I'm hoping that we can do a better job of not just having the single pathway that is only geared toward a broad 4-year liberal arts and then trying to say we're just going to water that down and so in case people want to do other stuff. Like I think we should have ways to have multiple pathways too. I think we have more students who can actually receive a diploma, who are SPED students. I have said this for a long time. We know that River Terrace is in Ward 7, even though those are not all Ward 7 students, but I go to that promotion ceremony every year. And those students actually have to go back through Project Search if they want a diploma. And that means some of them actually can't receive a diploma because they're still within the years where we can educate them. And that is a lifetime hit to whatever they'll be able to do. And so I think we should fix that. I'm sure there are other things that will come up in this conversation, and I'm looking forward to all the things that come up. And so I will make sure to keep you all abreast of once the proposal is shared. I will make sure that we are having conversations in Ward 7 and across the city about this. And I'm looking forward to us just being able to make these revisions real. Two, as far as things going on with the board, that's really the biggest thing going on with the board. But we are hosting our C committee, the Student Experience and Engagement Committee, which we actually do have 2 student representatives on, is hosting a youth, it's not a town hall, but it's almost like a youth hearing. That will be in October. Let me make sure I have the right date. I will put the date in the chat, but it's in the first week of October. It is for young people. It is not for the everybody. And so I want to make sure that folks have that opportunity. We do have 4 new student reps on the board. Of the 4 student reps, 1 is a Ward 7 resident. He does attend Coolidge. I'm excited about all of our student reps, and they will be setting their agenda fairly soon. And so we'll look forward to sharing with folks like what their agenda is and what they would like to do. But we did swear in our 4 new student reps. So those are really the big things from the board. I did raise the recommendations out of the co-meeting we had, myself and the Ward 7 Education Council. I shared those things with the board. We drafted a letter. I was checking in to see, because I've not seen that sent from the entire board. Now, that being said, Aussie knows what I want and how I feel. So does the DME. And so if we are not able to send that as a full board, I'll just send my own official correspondence, but I've already corresponded. I have an understanding that one of the things that might be possible is just some flexibility around virtual learning, especially for folks who are of certain targeted backgrounds. One of the delays is getting the language right, because we don't want to create language that makes them a further target, but we also don't want to make it true that people are not coming to school because either their parents are scared to walk them to school, they're scared to walk themselves to school for really good reason, because folks are being snatched off the street. And so I'm going to stay on top of just like what can we do as city officials to bridge this gap. I really appreciate all the organizations that are leaning in and providing supports, that community supports that we need. But I also believe that there are certain things that only government can do. And so we want to just make the hill a little less easy. I mean, a little more easy to climb. And so I'm looking forward to being in contact with folks around that. And if there are other recommendations, please lift those up. So those are really the big things in front of the board. Halloween's coming. We'll be back at the trunk or treat. That will be on Halloween, 6 to 8 p.m. Lot 6 is where we will be, which is where the farmers market used to be, Benning in Oklahoma. I don't have a flyer yet because I just got confirmed that it will be Lot 6. But I will share the flyer once it is created, and look forward to folks coming out to that free event. We are trying to make sure that you have a safe place to be, especially as we have heard that just them being together in spaces makes them a target. And so we always want to make sure that they're still able to, be joyous and celebrate and all the things, and just have the experiences that they should have as part of their childhood, despite these times that we are experiencing. And so those are my updates from the board. Thank you all for the time, and thank you all for the engagement, especially around like the what we can do. That's my report.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, as we continue We want to talk about any upcoming events anyone has, or I want to also ask people to consider signing up for one of our committees. Their budget, programs, communication, legislative, membership. And then we want any announcements that anyone will have. I will read from the chat that we already have one that is Decoding Dyslexia DC on October 8th at 7 p.m. Is having an event that says reading goals for IEP should not feel like guesswork. So come and learn about this and the science of reading, and understand the rationale for fighting to get them included in IEPs for struggling readers. There's a link in the chat to connect you to that event and for registration. So we want to highlight that one. So again, events, announcements, anyone who would like to come off and share those, this is the opportunity.
An announcement.
Mhm.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Sharona Robinson from DCPS. I am going to drop this in the chat, but I wanted to quickly announce that the community action team is whole again. We do have our newest Ward 7 and 8 community action team specialist on the call. He ended up calling in because of some challenges, but his name is Harley Morgan, and he will be supporting the majority of the schools in Ward 7 and 8. There's a little bit of a split because there are 42 schools. So he will support 30 of the 42, but I will drop our page in the chat so that you can see our team picture as well as look at bios of our team members.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Sharona, who our person is, Mr. Morgan, and the team. So we can see, if you go to the link, you can actually see where we fall. We're at 7 right there. So thank you. Definitely want to figure out how to make sure Harley is in these meetings and able to participate for the go forward period. And so sorry for any technical difficulties there. So that's one thing. So also in the chat is the student hearing about back to school experiences is also is October 8th, and there's from 5 to 9:30 p.m. There is a bit.ly link there. We'll make sure all these links get sent out in the newsletter, and when we send it out tomorrow. And with that being said, I think this is it. I will say, there, one of the, I don't want to say this. Anyway, the fund that I lead, it's going to be putting out about $11.5 million in grants for coalition work. To address the moment that we're in. We're going to be working in 5 different areas, including federally qualified health centers and the impact that Medicare is having and the changes there on those in our district. There are 9 of them. In addition, we're going to be putting out, that's about 4.5 million. We're going to be putting out about 2.5 million around youth safety and really supporting young people, specifically east of the river, to really understand the moment in which we operate. As Tia says, from Trigger Project, we're going to help, our goal is to help them to move from know your rights to know your reality, give them all the supports, wrap around, and wrap our arms around them, and to understand the moment in time in which we exist, We're going to be putting out about another 2.5 to support immigration, specifically young children who now don't have parents at a home, and that whole process, and how we can make sure that they have reasonable lives. And then we're going to be putting out 1 million to support unhoused residents, and that whole conversation and how they've been centered in the conversation, the current conversation. And then finally, 1 million to support those who continue to work on home rule, DC autonomy, and democracy, and to push for those efforts. We're not making big announcements, but if you know of any organization, coalition that are working on those issues, please have them reach out to me so I can get them to the right place and get more information about that work. We're really trying to meet the moment. The need is great. There's a lot on everyone's plate. And so because of that, I'm eternally grateful that you found the time tonight to come and spend with us. There's a lot of places you could be. I know a lot of people are hanging out at CBC. There's just a whole bunch of stuff going on, forums, panels, parties, all kinds of things. But you're here, and I thank you for your time and your commitment. These are the ways to stay connected to us, and the various social media and also the Zoom registration for our meetings, as well as where you can go to YouTube to view any meeting that we've had in the last few years. So with that going on, be safe, and we'll see you in October. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.